idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Bias presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We have our Week 10 recap. Bit of a down week here. Low median score, low waivers, low trades. We got to step it up as a league.
Terrible week.
Awful. One trade, one waiver on waiver day.
The only good news was the injuries were equally light.
That's
That's
true.
the only positive news.
That is true. We don't have a lot of injuries to go over. Let's skip straight to those injuries. There was really only two of note that happened during the games this week. They were both to tight ends. Dalton Kincaid hurt his knee and Sam Laporta hurt his shoulder. Obviously, with our league being what it is and the scoring settings being what they are, this takes on a little bit more importance here than it does in your average league. And both of these tight ends are on contending teams, Kincaid being on Flinch's team and Laporta being on Big's team. And both of those guys are right in the midst of a playoff push.
Yeah, thankfully neither one seems like a long-term injury. Dan Campbell, Lions coach, was talking about Laporta, called him day-to-day, thinks there's a chance that he can play this week. It's probably going to be something that nags him for the rest of the year, but he thinks he can play this week at least. So we know it's not a long-term
He was
injury.
day-to-day or week-to-week.
Or week-to-week. At least we know he's not going to miss an extended period of time.
It's when you don't want to make a decision that you just start throwing out random time frames, I think. Like, yeah, he's month to eon. Like, I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, the Kincaid one also, he left the game, came back in, and then left again. It doesn't sound like it's super serious, but it does sound like he's going to miss at least this week.
Yeah, he dove for a pass, landed on top of his flexed knee, which is usually a PCL sprain. Again, not a long-term injury, but he tried to put a brace and come back, and he was clearly limited, and they ended up pulling him out for good after a few snaps. So I assume with a bye coming up the week after that he's probably going to sit this week, although the Bills are currently hurting for receiving options at the moment with Coleman and Cooper nursing injuries. So you never know.
Yeah, it's true. You don't know, but they can cobble it together for a week. Knox is serviceable. He can catch a pass. He's not, a world beater or anything, but he's a good backup.
Yeah, he was the primary tight end for several years before they drafted Kincaid. Yeah. So he's certainly serviceable. He plays a good chunk of the snaps already as the second tight end, rotational tight end with Kincaid. So I don't think that they'll miss a ton. Kincaid hasn't been an ultra productive part of the offense so far this year.
No, he's not really returned on the draft day expectation yet. But more often than not, tight ends take a few years to actually realize their full potential.
Right. And we know that Knox is a better blocker as well. So there's a chance that him being the primary tight end for whatever losses you have in the passing game, he may be able to make up in the run game, and it may balance it out for the Bills. It's certainly not going to help Flinch. Neither of these tight ends are easily replaceable, especially in a format like this. You can't just pick up guys off waivers and plug them in.
Oh, not with that attitude, you can't. But
you can pick up bodies, but they ain't going to score any points.
It's funny you should mention that. Let's talk about the waivers that ran last week on, waiver Wednesday, I guess you could say. Nick Vannett, he of the Tennessee Titans, for all those of you who weren't aware, went for $15.
Third string tight end for the Tennessee Titans.
Yep. He went for $15 to Mr. Good News, and Drew Sample went for $8 to Big. That one actually, both of these players had multiple bids. Sample got bid on by Mel and by you. You bid 0. Obviously, we're unsuccessful with that bid. But two tight ends there who went. I'm not sure about the Vanette bid. He's kind of far down the depth chart and 31, and I'm pretty sure has like one career catch. I don't know. No,
I know he just scored a rogue touchdown. That's probably what got him picked up.
he's got two touchdowns on the year. He's he had a couple of years there at the beginning of his career in Seattle where it looked like he might be a serviceable number 2 tight end, but that was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And since then, he's basically just been a blocking tight end and averaging, 2 catches a year.
Listen, in this league, you take anybody with a pulse, any tight end that's getting any snaps at all is worth picking up. And that's what we saw. Two guys who play, they have some snap share. They are out on the field. So you never know. It's it's possible that they can catch a rogue touchdown here or there, which is what Vanette did recently.
Yeah. And I think that was what Sample had done the week before as well. I remember he had a decent game. We've seen a bit of the ball getting spread around to various and random receivers because in Cincinnati, because Joe Burrow is really good at quarterback, and outside of Jamar Chase, there doesn't seem to be anyone really good to pass it to because Higgins is hurt.
Yeah, anytime you're on the field with a quarterback like Joe Burrow, there's a chance that you can catch passes. And Drew Sample is certainly on the field a decent amount. He's mostly out there for his blocking like Nick Vanette, but when you're on the field, there's a chance you can have production, and we'll take any production we can get at this point from tight ends.
Nothing else on waivers, or nothing else worth talking about anyways. And a very disappointing week in trades. We only had one trade this week again, and I said that I was going to go out and do some more myself, and then I dropped the ball and didn't get anything done. I didn't really try as hard as I should have probably. But you, on the other hand, went and got one done. Much
Trade
better.
of the week.
Trade of the week, unfortunately for all. No, this is actually a lot better than it was last week. This is a decent one. You made a trade with Flea, where Flea picked up Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Tyrone Tracy, and in return, you got the injured and out for the season Dak Prescott. So this one's relatively straightforward. Flea is competing. She's got a championship caliber team here, and Dak Prescott being out for the season doesn't really help her at all.
Right.
And
She's been making moves like this for the better part of a year now, year and a half.
yeah, it seems like she's had some pretty rough injury luck this season, but she's done a fairly good job moving a lot of those injured pieces for good value and other pieces that can help her continue her title run here.
Yep, that's what she did here. She was looking for production. I approached her offering draft picks, and she did not want them. She wanted points, which I understand. It's become a bit of a strangled market. You can't really buy much right now because the teams that want to sell don't have anything to sell you, and the teams that have pieces don't want to sell. We have 4 teams fighting for that other buy next to Big, and then we have 4 teams fighting for the last playoff spot. None of these teams are willing to sell.
No one has decided they're all out yet.
Right. No, everybody is still alive. We'll get to the playoff odds in a little bit, but all of these teams are very much still in the hunt and have dreams of making the playoffs or making a long run. So nobody really wants to sell anybody who's going to score points right now. It's tough. So I understand not wanting to take the draft picks.
And I'm not going to lie. I also made an offer on Dak. Obviously, my offer was unsuccessful. Your offer was accepted. And I am disappointed at that. I really was hoping to get Dak Prescott on my team because I had Dak very briefly before I traded him. I got Dak from Flea and then traded Dak to you, and you traded Dak. It's like, this is just Dak has been floating around between these 3 teams for like 2 years now.
Well, I drafted Dak in the startup.
They get Dak from you and then traded Dak to Flea. That's what it was. I had it backwards.
I took him in the startup and traded him to you at some point. He's made the rounds in the league, as most people that started on my roster.
Yeah, that's true. You don't keep people very long. You do not have a long-term roster strategy for most of these people.
I don't get attached to names.
Yeah.
Most of these players are a means to an end.
So the interesting thing about this trade for Flea is that she traded away Dak, but didn't get a quarterback in return. Now, this is an interesting thing to me, but she still has three starting quarterbacks on her roster. She had Dak, obviously. She has Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold, and Derek Carr remaining. Now, none of those are quite true, like a number one options for fantasy anymore. I mean, Stafford is, that next tier down where he's a very good starter, but Darnold has had a bit of a struggle lately, and the Saints are completely up and down with Carr. So this does make Flea a little bit weaker at the position, and it seems like quarterback is sort of hard to come by in the league right now.
Yeah, very much so. I think that was one of the biggest problems is that she tried to get quarterbacks, didn't like the deals that she had in place for that, which I'm assuming probably had something to do with you. So I think at some point she just figured that it was better to get the points no matter what position they came from.
Yeah, and Tracy's been excellent, and if he continues to do that, then it should work out just fine.
Fantasy superstar.
And obviously MVS gives her a stack with Carr now, and we saw the 3 catches but 2 touchdowns this week from that.
Right, we saw the ceiling for sure this week.
Yeah.
And he did play the most snaps of any of the receivers. He's only been on the team for a couple of weeks now.
They don't have anybody else. Everyone else is hurt.
So that's the thing. He's got a
It's
very
him
clear.
and Mason Tipton out there.
He's got a very clear lane to being the number one receiver on this team. So yeah, that was a sneaky good addition to the trade.
All right, so let's all make more trades and have more to discuss next week. But that's it for the trades. That's it for the waivers. That's thankfully it for the injuries. Let's move on to the matchups. We had a league median score this week of 178.59. Pretty low. Not one of our better weeks.
That's pretty terrible. That's got to be the lowest week this year, right?
Oh,
I know week 1 and 2 we were
I think it's
kind of
the
hanging
second
in the
or
180s.
third lowest.
No, that's got to be the lowest one.
You think it was?
I'm not fact checking, but I'm
Probably should have checked this beforehand. Well, according to this, our league median score week 1 was 0.00. That's
okay.
helpful,
So
Sleeper.
I stand corrected. It was not the lowest week.
Apparently, when I scroll back and look at the previous weeks, it's all listed as zeros. Why? Why is it like this? Can you see it on the desktop version? I hesitate to ask.
Desktop does not show the league median anywhere.
Like at all?
No, it does not show it.
If I
Anywhere.
scroll back week by week, it does not populate. All right.
The lowest median of the year so far.
The
What a
lowest
terrible
median
week.
in 36 weeks.
Horrible.
Anyway.
Embarrassing.
Yeah. So our high score this week was Mel, the commissioner. He put up a 223.65. He beat my team. I put up a 122.71. This score, this 223 reminds me of a few weeks ago when we were seeing like the second and third highest scoring team put up 240. We were saying, well, most weeks this would be the number one score.
Right.
These are the weeks we were talking about.
This week it was the number one score by a wide margin.
Oh yeah, Mel outscored the next highest scoring team by almost 20 points. Like this was not particularly close. So good job, Mel. The rest of us are terrible.
Agreed. And most of this had to do with Jamar
I was gonna
Chase.
say, there was really only one reason for all of this. Not one reason, but the most important reason was the 62.15 points from Jamar Chase on the strength of 11 catches, 264 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and 8 first downs.
Right.
So he either got a touchdown or a first down on 11 of 11 catches.
He single-handedly outscored Mr. Good News' team most weeks this year.
He scored he scored more than half of what my team scored by himself. I mean, my team's not good, but that's a little embarrassing. Yeah. So this is the number one player score in any given week since our league has started. So congrats to Jamar Chase. Congrats to Mel. Congrats to Joe Burrow. I don't know. What a freaking performance that was. It was great because it was the Thursday night game and we all got to watch it in prime time.
Yeah, and then anyone who had to play against him just had to cry for the rest of the week because there's no coming back from that.
Yep. Other players on Mel's team did okay. Rashad White, 20 points. Josh Allen, 18 points. AJ Brown, 19 points. Nothing all that special.
Those are good scores for this week.
Yeah, that's true.
Not a lot of players over 20 points this week.
No, there was not a lot out there. I got 20 out of Herbert and 20 out of Puka Nacua and a wonderful 23-point performance from John Mechie III. Been waiting for that one for like 2 years.
Right. That was the most unexpected of all of these 20-point performances.
Says you. I bet on Mechie's alternate yardage over totals and won a bunch of money. I didn't expect the touchdown necessarily, but it was nice to see. I like Mechie. I actually think he's played well lately. He was open a bunch the last couple weeks, and every time Stroud threw him a target, it was like 8 feet over his head and completely uncatchable. But the player was open. I don't know. It seemed like it was time.
So what do we think about his role going forward? Because Nico is going to come back and play the X, which is currently being filled by Xavier Hutchinson, who has done absolutely nothing since I traded for him. I knew he was going to get a lot of snaps. I knew he was going to be on the field, but unfortunately it didn't lead to any production.
Yeah.
Now, Mechie has been kind of rotating with Robert Woods, but in this game, it was mostly him playing on passing downs and Woods playing on running downs or running formations with the split.
Yeah. So we know that Woods is an excellent run blocking wide receiver. We've seen that for years.
Right.
And he's probably past his pass catching prime at this point.
So if Mechie can maintain this kind of role, you could be looking at a useful piece going forward. And we know Diggs isn't coming back next year, most likely.
No,
He's
probably not.
Going into free agency coming off an ACL injury.
And even if he does come back, is he going to be healthy to start the season?
Right. So there's definitely a role here for Mechie.
Yeah, it seems like the team wants to play 3 wide a lot of the time. And obviously Diggs, even if he comes back next year, is not going to be there for the rest of this year. And that's another, 8 weeks or whatever it is. I would imagine that Mechie's going to get the first crack at the snaps behind Nico and Tank.
Yeah, it feels like this is kind of a audition for him for a role next year.
Well, and like I said, if you go back and look, he's been open. He's been running running good routes.
He was a very good college player, and he got drafted high. I mean, if it wasn't for the unfortunate cancer diagnosis, then we could have seen this breakout much, much earlier. But he kind of got buried for a while.
And who knows? Maybe it's a 1 week flash in the pan, and then the rest of the season he goes back to what he had been, which is a catch here, a catch there, but not really a productive player. But I don't know. I obviously I drafted the guy, and he's been on my team since. I continue to believe that he could be a useful player. I don't think he's going to be a superstar ever, but I think he could be a useful depth fantasy piece in a best ball league. We're going to go on. Our next highest scoring team was Flea. Flea put up a 205.36 and she beat Benign Rug. Rug put up a 103.95. So as we just mentioned, Flea in the midst of a playoff race. Even without Dak this week, still the second highest score. Really down scoring on the league this week.
Yeah, 205 has been under the median some weeks recently. So being the number 2 score this week, it wasn't a great week. But Bijan Robinson had a good week.
Yep,
he's been
30 points.
He's been really coming on recently.
he had a little bit of a slow start to the season, I think, and that could have just been because it took that Atlanta offense a few games to get going, took Kirk Cousins a few games to get his rhythm back, I guess. But the offense looks decent there. They didn't have a great week this week, but that wasn't because of Bijan.
Well, I think the biggest thing is they finally got rid of this stupid committee with Tyler Algier. I mean, Algier is a fine player, but he is not Bijan Robinson. There's no reason that
No, the two players are not
pushing for
Not
even
the same.
snap shares or playing any passing downs at all. It should be Bijan
The
out
passing
there as
down
much as
work was the
possible.
oddest part of it.
Right. And it's not like he was in there to block. They were putting him out in passing routes. That's not what you have Tyler Algier for.
Yeah.
That's not what he's out there for.
Yep.
You got Bijan, use him. And they have been recently, and he's been the best running back in fantasy over the last month or so.
She also got almost 30-point day from Travis Kelce. So Kelce continues to score touchdowns and do well after having left your team.
Right. What a smart trade.
Yep. For someone. But good days from Carr, decent day from Taylor. Nice to see Alec Pierce get back in the lineup. 4 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown in garbage time.
I think like 70 of those yards and a touchdown once the game was out of reach. But
Yep.
hey, they still count for fantasy.
Yep. Hey, it got the job done. On the other side of things, for Rugg, Bryce Young appears to be somewhat functional some of the time.
Back-to-back wins, first time in his career. He's back.
Can you be back if you were never there in the first place?
Start building the statue.
The statue
Yeah, we got to put a statue in front of the stadium.
of Bryce Young.
Yes. 2 wins in a row.
Interesting. We're gonna
I
ignore
mean, he
that.
beat the Giants. That's no easy task.
Are you sure about that? I thankfully did not have to watch this game. I am a Giants fan. I did not watch. We had family stuff to get done early in the morning, so I was following along a little bit. And honestly, it's for the best that they lost, especially against another weak opponent who's competing for that number 1 overall pick. But oh god, what a disappointment this is.
5 quarters of sadness.
I don't.
You got an extra quarter.
Being a Giants fan has not been fun for the last 10 years. Let me just share that insight with everyone who didn't know already.
Well, they're so close, getting ready to turn the corner here any day now.
The couple of bright spots. Johnson was okay for both the Giants and Ruggs team. Same with Wan'Dale Robinson.
Okay is a very it's a very relative. Where he had 37
Grading on
yards.
a curve here for the Giants
37
and for Ruggs
yards.
team, who are in similar straits right now.
Oh, tight end is
Although Ruggs only been there for like a year as opposed to the decade the Giants have been suffering for.
that's fair. Let's hope that Rugg does not have a decade-long suffering.
Seems unlikely. He's got some good young pieces that had decent weeks. Marvin Harrison is looked better of late. He got a touchdown. Drake May didn't have a great fantasy numbers day, but looked decent for the Patriots again in a game that he really didn't need to do a whole heck of a lot.
Right.
Let's move on. Our next highest scoring team was Flinch's team. Flinch put up a 204.8. He beat Judd. Judd put up a 177.86. So Judd just misses out on that median score.
Yeah, it's a tough week.
Yeah, tough when you are that first team under the median and you lose your week. You just look at it and go, oh man, this could have been slightly different. Now, obviously, Judd not really in danger of dropping out of the playoff race, but he was trying to compete for that bye, and this brings both of these teams to 15-5 after this. So he had a bit of a lead on Flinch's team coming into the week, and that has evaporated now.
Yeah, and he got a hot start on Thursday with Joe Burrow. Unfortunately, he was facing Lamar Jackson, who
Lamar
was even
Jackson
better.
also had a hot start on Thursday.
Sorry, Judd.
And
should have taken that MVS offer before the game. Could have helped
got
this
him
week.
over the median anyways.
Could have helped this week.
So on the other side of things, Flinch, good games from his wide receivers. Juwan Jennings, 20 points. George Pickens, 24 points, or rather 23, excuse me. Darnell Mooney, 17. It was a solid performance there. The only really bright spots for Judd were Amon-Ra St. Brown and Mark Andrews. The rest of the team was fairly disappointing.
Yep. See what happens when you trade with me? Stars. Always in the lineup.
Yep, Mark Andrews. Well, I mean, see what happens when you trade with me. Look on the other side of things. Juwan Jennings, Darnell Mooney, Bo Nix, all in the lineup for Flinch.
Well, you trade away all your good players. No wonder your team's in last place. You got superstars all over the place.
I'm not in last. I'm in
second
to last.
To last. All right. That's fair.
No, it's a lot of players on both sides of this that were acquired either this year or in this offseason leading up to this year. Smart moves by these managers. All right, we're going to move on to our next highest scoring matchup. That was Big's matchup. Big put up a 195.39, and he played against Georgia Mike. Georgia Mike lost this one, put up a 173.50. So this one drops Georgia Mike to 10-10, brings Big to 18-2.
Yeah, tough week
for not lost very much.
Tough week for Georgia Mike. He got Big on a down week, and unfortunately his week was even downer. And he couldn't quite
not the best way to phrase that.
Couldn't quite get over the median or get past Big. He had a chance here to put some distance in the playoff race, but instead Big got the 2 wins and has put some distance on that number 1 seed. I mean, he's starting to open up a big lead here for the bye week.
Yep. We'll get to that. We'll touch on the bye week odds when we get to the playoff predictor. But for this week, the real reason that Georgia Mike didn't get over that median score, I would say, is the quarterback position. He only got 12 points from Daniel Jones, and his other 2 starting quarterbacks right now, Mac Jones filling in for Trevor Lawrence, put up a 3.99, and Caleb Williams was sacked 9 times by the Patriots and put up a 2.3. Did not make the lineup.
We need to talk about Caleb Williams. This is becoming a big problem.
Well, the good news is they fired Shane Waldron.
Well, I guess we're going to find out if that was the biggest problem.
I don't know if it was the biggest problem, but let me tell you, it was definitely a problem.
Certainly a problem.
So what was it, 2 weeks ago where we had the JSN breakout game? And then today after Waldron got fired, I saw the rounds, saw the clip of him talking about Shane Waldron on the radio, making the rounds again. Where he got asked by the Chicago radio station, they just hired Shane Waldron. What can you tell Chicago fans about that? And he goes like, "Oh, are we live right now?"
Yeah, it was so shocking to see someone who failed so miserably as an offensive coordinator go to a new team and once again have a terrible offense. Yeah. I'm not sure what the plan was here, but they followed up the horrible Luke Getsy experience with Shane Waldron. At least they fired him quicker.
Yeah, they didn't. He didn't even last the year. I mean, this is half a season and he's gone now. I don't know what they're going to do in season, how much you can really change. Obviously, you could change the play calls themselves.
Don't worry. Good news. You know who's taking over as offensive coordinator is Thomas Brown, who, of course, was responsible for the offense that got Frank Reich fired and had Bryce Young's wonderful rookie year last year. Don't worry. We got plenty more terrible offensive coordinators to come.
There seem to be more of them than good ones around. So.
Yep, that's a problem.
Not shocking. It's a hard job. I got a lot of respect for these guys that can manage it, but it's bad when it's bad.
Right. And unfortunately, it's been very bad this year for Caleb and the offense. Started out so promising, and it's just really been in the toilet the last month. Since the bye week, really, they've been probably the worst offense in the league.
Yeah, no, it has been ugly. There's not been much saving grace there. It's tough. Hopefully it gets better.
It's everybody. The play calling was bad. The receivers are bad, dropping passes, not running routes. We had DJ Moore stop in the middle of a route and run off the field during the play.
Yeah, that
Caleb
was weird.
Williams is holding the ball way too long. He's taken,
Yeah.
9 sacks. I don't care how bad the offensive line is. 9 sacks has got a lot to do with the quarterback as well.
Sacks are quarterback stat.
He's been missing wide open guys. I saw a clip going around from the last game, 6, 7 passes where he had time and just completely missed a guy. It's not been great. It's not been great for the entire offense. And there's a lot of guys on this team that people were counting on for fantasy, and none of them are delivering right now. It's a bit of a train wreck, and it got Shane Waldron fired. So I'm assuming it's going to get Matt Eberflus fired by the end of the year as well.
I would imagine that one's coming next. I mean, obviously you don't root for guys to lose their job, but sometimes it seems to be the thing that a team might need to do.
Right. I love how the Bears do this. They give coach 1 year too long and then let him draft the next franchise quarterback only to run him into the ground and then a new team take over that's not attached to that quarterback. And it's just been an endless cycle in Chicago for, I don't know, 50 years now.
You'd think that at some point they would learn from their mistakes, but
Well,
they haven't yet. Now, hopefully it improves. Obviously, Caleb, had the pedigree to go number 1 overall. He isn't going to just forget how to play football this quickly. He'll.
right. That's what we said about Bryce Young last year.
That's true.
So,
Caleb is a better prospect than Bryce Young was.
yeah, that's fair.
So,
But Bryce Young was not a bad prospect either.
no, I'm not saying he was. I don't mean to imply that, but I think these two are on a different level from each other. But the good news for Georgia Mike is that he did have some decent scores. Chase Brown, 24 points. Austin Eckler, 2 touchdowns this week. I said it earlier this year that I wouldn't be surprised to see them use him around the goal line. I still think he's one of the most effective goal line backs in the league. I think NFL coaches sometimes get too caught up in, goal line back, big bruising. Yeah. Like, no, just like Eckler is good at getting in the end zone. I don't care how big he is.
Right. Well, it helps that Brian Robinson's been out, so he's gotten those opportunities by default.
Yeah. But
he's definitely cashed in on him.
I was going to say, I'm of the opinion that it would have been just fine to give him those opportunities, even with Robinson there. We saw him be excellent at the goal line for years before this. This is not a new development.
Oh, I agree. I'm been an Austin Eckler proponent for his entire career since he was an undrafted free agent. You're speaking to a reformed Charger fan who has followed his entire career very closely.
Nothing about you could say to be reformed.
Well, I certainly don't root for him anymore. Stupid Los Angeles.
You didn't root for him when you were rooting for them. Drake London, nice game. Mr. Hooper drives the boat, 13 points. Kyle Pitts, 13 points. Bucky Irving, 19 points. On the other side of things, Big had one of the highest scores in the league, 4th highest score in the league. Kyler Murray, 28 points. James Conner, 24 points. This is another version of the Lamar and Henry. When one of them has a good day, they both have a good day things.
I think that good day was just playing the Jets.
Oh, God, the Jets look so bad.
Train wreck. Speaking of terrible looking offenses, God, there's some bad football this week.
And speaking of playing the Jets, Trey McBride, 16 points. Laporta, 18 points before leaving with that injury. All of Big's flex spots filled by those running backs. Also Mike Gesicki in there. But seriously, like all these running backs, even with down weeks, putting up decent points, double digits from everybody, basically.
Trey Benson also against the Jets. He's had all the Cardinals in there today.
I didn't even notice that one.
All the Cardinals were in there.
Yeah, so basically, it was just because the Cardinals had a good day that Big did well. Right? It's fair.
He's heavily invested in that offense.
It's like Flinch doing well when the Broncos do well. Like, yeah, it's just kind of how it goes.
Right? Super stack.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on. Our next highest scoring team was Criddle. Criddle put up a 181.76, and he beat JMC, who put up a 179.32. Now, this is an important matchup here because both of these teams are competing for that final playoff spot. This moves Criddle to 10-10 and moves JMC to 9-11.
Yeah, this was the matchup of the week right
Very
here.
exciting.
This was the most important matchup, and it was the closest race. I mean, barely 2 points separating these teams, and it flipped the standings for Criddle. He's now moved into the final playoff spot, and JMC managing to get over the median, salvaged a win at least, even though he took the loss in the head-to-head matchup. He's firmly in the playoff picture. He's only
Gives him another
one
week
win,
of
one win
treading
behind,
water.
right? He's only one win behind.
So this matchup was obviously our closest one. For Criddle, 29.6 from Jalen Hurts, who has been on just a great pace lately. He's had some really, really solid games after starting the season a little slow.
Yeah, they destroyed Dallas. The only reason that
You
the
love to
rest
see
of
it.
the only reason the rest of the Eagles players didn't score as many points is because they were winning by so much. They pulled everybody for like an entire quarter.
Yeah. He does
They
have
didn't need anybody.
he does have Goddard and Barkley both in the lineup, but neither one of them really scored all that many points. Goddard and Barkley combining for 23 points. The big scores on his team came from Chuba Hubbard, who had almost 27 points.
Yeah,
And
what a season for Chuba Hubbard. I mean,
yeah, just got paid too.
They took Jonathan Brooks in the second round. I mean, we knew he was coming off of an ACL, but you figured, okay, well, Chuba's just going to kind of keep the seat warm for a couple weeks until Brooks takes over. And instead, Chuba's been one of the best running backs in the league and earned himself a giant payday. So now what's going to happen with Brooks, who is allegedly healthy and going to finally come back this week? I guess he's going to slide into that Miles Sanders role now with Sanders getting carted off this week.
Yeah, it looks like he's not coming back anytime soon.
It's going to be hard to not give Chuba a big workload with how productive he's been. He's been the engine for this offense.
And he just got the big contract.
Right.
I'd imagine team, you can't have too many good players on the team. If Brooks is good, they'll use them both.
You're not going to have two running backs handling 15 to 20 carries a game. That's not going to happen with this offense because they're going to be down by 30 points at halftime. They're not going to be able
Probably
to run.
not, but if you know you have two productive running backs, you can split the carries. NFL running back is a punishing position to play. It behooves you to spread those touches around. And if you can spread them around and not have the other touches going to a lesser caliber player, that's a good thing.
Right. We've seen this is the way the NFL works now. Every team outside of a very small handful run two-back systems. There's very few teams where one guy gets the majority of the workload. This is one of the few teams where one guy was getting the majority of the workload in Chuba Hubbard. But yeah, you can expect Brooks to cut into that. But yeah, you're really looking at a very different long-term projection for these two guys now. It's really flipped where now we expect Chuba to kind of be the main guy and Brooks to be the change of pace back. And we assumed after the draft that was the opposite. But Chuba's played well. He's been easily the best player on this team all season.
I would say that's an accurate statement. All right. The interesting difference in this matchup is you had Chuba Hubbard and welcome back Christian McCaffrey, almost 19 points for Criddle. On the other side of things,
yeah, welcome back to a 90% snap share. He went back to
everyone. We knew that was going to happen.
They don't ease him in.
Shanahan's incapable of not just throwing McCaffrey out there for the entire game.
Right.
On the other side of things, though, P. Ryan and Antonio Gibson combining for, I don't know, what's that? 9 points.
Yeah.
It was JMC's wide receivers who carried him over the median and gave him a fighting chance in this matchup. The stack between Ridley and Levis worked out for, I'm pretty sure, the first time this season. Almost 28 points from Calvin Ridley.
Yeah,
Rashad Bateman
two
continues
touchdowns.
to pop off every now and again, 20 points. Nice games from Mitchell and Downs, both in Indianapolis, despite the fact that they lost handily.
Yep. He had the Pearsall to Purdy stack working as well.
Yep. Yeah. Ricky Pearsall filling in with all the injuries in San Francisco. And I guess filling in is not really the right word because I'm sure they drafted him to play him as well, but getting more play time with all the injuries.
Yeah, it was interesting the way they used him because we assumed that maybe he would go into that kind of X role with Ayuk out, but really they took Juwan Jennings out of the slot and Jennings pretty much filled the Ayuk role with Pearsall playing in the slot. Not
Just want to check.
not what I was expecting, but interesting usage there for those three.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fair. I want to check if you're ready to recant your statement that I probably shouldn't have kept Juwan Jennings the whole time since the initial startup draft.
No, never.
Okay, just checking. Maybe
I
next
never-
week.
I never changed my mind.
Evidence? The other discrepancy between these two teams is the tight end position. Criddle got good days at the tight end position or a good day, I guess I should say, from George Kittle, decent day from Will Dissly. On the other side of things, an okay game from Jonnu Smith and a disappointing game from Chigakonkwo for JMC.
Yeah, unfortunately, these are the bugaboos for JMC's team, and the reason he's not a stronger contender.
Yep.
A halfway decent running back score would have gotten him the win this week. He just doesn't have the bodies there, unfortunately.
And it's difficult to find tight end to address, that weakness. It's a little bit easier to find running back, but also I'm guessing he's somewhat hesitant to invest future capital into this season.
Yeah, he did put in the chat offering a third round pick for any running back with a pulse. I think I think at this point, if it's somebody that he can comfortably project to have a role next year as well, he would definitely pull the trigger early.
Yeah.
I know he's been shopping around for some running backs that could be a play this year and next year as well.
We only have one more matchup left to discuss, and it is your matchup.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about this one.
Oh, we do. You put up a 157.13, and you beat Mr. Good News, who put up a 69.70.
Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse.
This moves you to 10-10. And if you haven't been paying attention, everyone, that's a very similar score to the ones we just discussed. Criddle, Al, and Georgia Mike all at 10-10, and JMC at 9-11.
Somehow, I am still in this playoff race,
Yep.
and I don't understand because my team is so bad. It's just,
I don't know what you're talking about. You got 27 points from Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Welcome back, TJ Hawkinson, 24 points. Dalton Schultz, he's out there. He's doing work, 13.35.
yeah,
Pretty sure you had some other double-digit scores somewhere along the line.
This wasn't much. Wasn't much this week. Not great. Thankfully, I was playing Mr. Good News, so I got a win, but I did not break the median, even as low as the median was this week. I was still below it.
Tough luck for you, but again, 1-1 is enough to keep you alive for now. On the other side of things, Mr. Good News got a 22-point day from Tanner Hudson. Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, I should have held on to him. Every time I drop a player, he winds up on Mr. Good News' team.
I would imagine we see a Tanner Hudson trade coming up if he is able to find a suitor. Anyone out there? Mr. Good News has a 30-year-old tight end who's getting snaps and playing okay. Go get him.
You could have had him for free. I just dropped him.
Well, unfortunately for the rest of you, you got beat to the punch. Other tight ends, Davis Allen had a decent day. He appeared to be playing the vast majority of the passing down snaps.
All the snaps. He has completely replaced Colby Parkinson as the primary tight end for the Rams. This was it's been in the making since their bye week. We've seen less and less of Colby Parkinson. For whatever reason, they've just completely phased him out of the offense. And now, after this week, Davis Allen looks like the primary tight end until Higbee gets back, at least.
Well, it's a useful role. We've seen a few different guys be productive when they get all those snaps. So, it's good for Mr. Good News. And Allen's only 23 years old, so this is a piece that he could potentially keep if he can hold that job down.
Yep. And again, it's a guy that he got from me.
Yep.
In
Allen was a trade, though, I think, right?
My Denzel Mims trade.
Denzel Mims trade. Please stop.
At least I got Denzel Mims.
For those wondering this was also a 5th round pick for a 4th round pick. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. All right. That does it for the matchups for the week. Let's go take a look at our Dynasty Daddy playoff predictor odds. All right. Nothing has changed at the top. We have 5 teams: Big, Mel, Judd, Flinch, and Flea, all greater than 99% chance to make the playoffs.
Right.
That last spot is where things get interesting.
I mean, we need to talk about the
well,
race
hold
for
on.
the second bye.
We're gonna do the playoffs first, then the buys after.
Fine, do it your
All
way.
Yeah, you can do it my way. You put me in charge of setting the table here, sir. All right, make the playoffs. Criddle at 10-10 has moved up into the highest chance for that last spot at 45%. Next, we have Al, also at 10-10 at 27% chance. Third, Georgia Mike at 10-10. Stop me if you've heard that one before, at 25%. And bringing up the rear is JMC at 9-11, only 1 game back at 4%. It's a tight one.
Yeah, it feels like these odds should be much closer. Again,
Yeah,
this is far too much spread. When 3 of these teams have the same record and the other one's only 1 game behind.
Yeah, I don't know why that's at 4%. When he's 9-11, it's like if he was 8-12, I guess, where you're a full week back. But next week, with a little bit of luck, JMC could literally have the best record of these teams.
Right. He plays Georgia Mike next week.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance that I will lose and Criddle will lose playing Mel and Big, the highest scoring, 2 of the highest scoring teams in the league. And Georgia Mike,
as Big
and
would
James,
say, the hottest team in the league.
right? And Georgia Mike and James C play each other this week, so that could very well determine who is sitting in the playoff catbird seat after this week.
Those head-to-head matchups matter quite a bit. So we're going to take a look now, not before now, at the first round bye odds. Big has opened up a 3-game lead here. He's got an 18-2 record. The other 4 99% chance to make the playoffs teams are all scattered at 15-5. So consequently, Big's odds for a first round bye are currently listed at 94%. Seems like it's a fairly good chance he's got that one locked up.
Pretty good odds. His team is good. He's outscored everyone this season by a wide margin. He's got almost a 200 point
he's got
200 point lead on everyone.
He's got the points tiebreaker cushion.
But these other 4 teams are all 15-5. I mean, we have 2 very tight races. One for the second bye in the playoffs, and the other for the 6th spot.
I find the playoff one a little bit more exciting than the bye one because even if you get a bye, like it, you still have to win after. But are you going to make the playoffs or not is a big difference to me.
I think the bye is huge considering all these teams are so.
Oh, they're all stacked.
So,
but here's the thing: you're going to get a bye
good
week.
And so evenly matched that it's like it's a free win.
Let's say Big gets that bye week though, and let's say right now Criddle is the number 6. Let's say everything holds as is. Criddle gets that 6th spot. All right, Criddle plays like Judd in the first round, and then after that, and Judd wins. Now Big's coming off the bye, and he's got to face Judd's team. Like that's not. How much was that bye really worth? Like he was. No offense to you, Criddle, George, Mike, and James. He was probably going to beat that team anyways.
Right, but just the fact that one of these 4 teams is not going to have to play one of the other 3 very good teams for at least one round of the playoffs. I mean, it increases your odds exponentially for continuing on.
It's that 4-5 matchup that's going to be the tough one.
Right.
For the other first round bye, the odds are Mel at 35%. This is all obviously according to Dynasty Daddy, same as the playoff predictor odds here. Mel at 35%, Flinch at 35%, Flea at 21%, and Judd bringing up the rear at 15%.
Yeah, it's an interesting spread.
Yeah. I don't know.
Feels like it should be much closer. This one is much closer than the playoff race for the last spot, but
even 15% compared to 35%, is it really that much of a difference? I think this will all come down to a little bit of luck here and there when these teams are playing each other and who gets the better week.
Yep, it's going to come down to head-to-head matchups these last 4 weeks.
And I don't know how many head-to-head matchups these teams have. I haven't looked ahead. We said 4 weeks left.
Yep.
Yeah. So next week, I'll start looking ahead a little bit more and giving, rest of season schedules and stuff like that when we get to this section, because at that point we'll only have 3 more games and it'll be a little bit easier to digest. All right. But that brings us to the end of that. We'll keep an eye on the first round bye stuff and see as it solidifies a little bit more who moves up, who moves down. Any predictions?
No, I have no idea.
Forget Dynasty Daddy. Give me Al's predictions. AI predictions.
I have no idea. I would give everyone very similar odds because these teams are so evenly matched. I mean, even in the points scored between Judd, Flinch, and Flea, there's only a less than 20-point spread in points scored on the entire season between the
Incredible
three teams.
how that's happened.
This is a tight race.
All right, we do have a scoring settings discussion that we are going to get to hopefully next week, but unfortunately we are out of time this week. I ran late at work and we are unable to get to it now. But don't worry, that quarterback scoring discussion is coming. In the meantime, we're going to get out of here. We will see everybody next week, but until then,
See you in the league chat.